Mint, the budgeting app that promised to fix your financial life, along with countless others, ended up profiting from your financial stress instead. In March 2024, 3.6 million Mint users logged into their accounts and discovered years of financial data had simply vanished, wiped away when Intuit decided the app wasn't profitable enough to maintain. Mint's shutdown wasn't just about one company's business decisions. It exposed a fundamental truth about the entire budgeting app industry. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And that product being sold is your most intimate financial information, often to the very companies that prey on financial vulnerability. When Aaron Patzer launched Mint in 2007, the promise seemed revolutionary. A free app that would connect to your bank accounts, categorize your spending, and help you budget better. No more spreadsheets, no more manual entry. Just connect your accounts and let technology handle everything. By 2009, the app had succeeded enough that Intuit bought it for $170 million. At its peak, Mint served 20 million users who trusted it with their financial lives. But those users didn't fully grasp what was happening behind the scenes. Mint was never really free. The company's business model was built on a house of cards that would eventually collapse under its own contradictions. As Val Agostino, Mint's first product manager who later founded Monarch Money, explained after the shutdown, a free personal finance app simply isn't a viable business. The data fees required to connect to tens of thousands of banks through aggregators like Plaid cost serious money. Every free user was costing Mint cash, and the company had to make it up somehow. That somehow reveals the dark heart of the free budgeting app ecosystem. These apps don't just track your spending, they analyze it, profile it, and monetize it. When you categorize a purchase as groceries versus dining out, when you set up savings goals, when you check your balance at 2 a.m. because you're stressed about money, all of this becomes data points in a behavioral profile that's incredibly valuable to marketers. The business model was simple but ethically compromised. Mint would analyze user spending patterns and present them with offers for credit cards, loans, and financial products. The company earned referral fees when users signed up for these products. But there was a critical problem. The financial products offering the highest referral fees were typically not the best products for customers. As Agostino admitted, there was always an internal tension between doing what was in our users' best interests and trying to drive revenue to keep the business alive. This misalignment of incentives wasn't unique to Mint. It's endemic across the entire free budgeting app industry. Apps like NerdWallet and Rocket Money operate on similar models, presenting users with financial product recommendations that may serve the app's revenue needs more than the user's financial health. When you're struggling to pay rent and a budgeting app suggests a high-interest credit card, whose interests are really being served? The data collection goes far deeper than most users realize. According to research by Incogni, 60% of budgeting apps share user data with third parties. These apps collect an average of 9 data points per user, including spending categories, income ranges, transaction patterns, and behavioral profiles. Apps with over 5 million downloads collected an average of 12.3 data points per user. The most troubling development is the collection of what researchers call stress data. One documented case involved a 29-year-old nurse from Chicago who thought her budgeting app's new well-being feature was a thoughtful addition. The app would ask gentle questions like, "How are you feeling about your finances this week?" with options like calm, worried, or overwhelmed. She answered honestly about her student debt, unpredictable work shifts, and financial stress. The app then began showing her supportive offers, which turned out to be targeted ads for high-interest credit cards and instant cash loans. What she didn't know was that her emotional responses weren't just for her benefit. They were being bundled into anonymized emotional risk scores and sold to third parties who wanted to know when people were financially vulnerable and most likely to accept expensive financial products. As one privacy researcher put it, stress is no longer just something you talk about with your therapist. It's a data point. Once it becomes a data point, it can be scored, traded, and used to predict your future behavior. The technical infrastructure that enables this data harvesting remains largely invisible to users. When you tap Connect Bank in most budgeting apps, you're not connecting directly to your bank. Instead, you're connecting through data aggregators like Plaid, which act as intermediaries. While Plaid faces the most scrutiny, competitors like Yodlee and Finicity operate similar models throughout the financial data ecosystem. Plaid stores your banking credentials, pulls your transaction data, and passes it along to whichever app you're using. Apps like YNAB, Rocket Money, Copilot, and dozens of others all route through this same pipeline. But Plaid's practices came under scrutiny when users discovered the company was collecting far more data than necessary. In 2020, a class action lawsuit revealed that Plaid was using deceptive login screens that looked like bank websites to harvest users' banking credentials. The company was accused of collecting and selling detailed financial data from roughly 98 million users without proper consent. Lead plaintiff James Cottle said that when he signed up for Venmo in 2019, he had no idea he was sharing his banking information with Plaid. The company used misleading interfaces that made users think they were logging directly into their banks when they were actually handing over their credentials to a third party. In 2022, Plaid agreed to a $58 million settlement and was ordered to delete vast amounts of consumer data. Each affected user received about $36, a fraction of what their data was worth to the company. The Plaid settlement was significant not just for its size, but for what it revealed about the broader data ecosystem. As attorney Laura Seidel noted, "I think it's going to be a great deterrent to other institutions that might try to do similar things." But the fundamental business model remains unchanged. Data aggregators still sit between users and their banks, collecting and monetizing financial information on a massive scale. The psychological impact of these practices extends beyond simple privacy concerns. Research shows that budgeting can already induce stress, trigger cognitive biases, and lead to decision fatigue. When apps use this vulnerability to target users with expensive financial products, they're essentially weaponizing financial anxiety for profit. Users who are most in need of sound financial advice are instead shown offers designed to extract maximum revenue from their desperation. The regulatory response has been inconsistent and often toothless. In October 2024, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau issued Rule 1033, aimed at giving consumers greater control over their financial data under existing frameworks like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. But just months later, in December 2024, the CFPB proposed a rule to limit data broker practices, only to withdraw it entirely by May 2025. The withdrawal provides immediate regulatory relief for data brokers and maintains the status quo where there's minimal federal oversight of financial data selling. This regulatory vacuum leaves consumers largely on their own to navigate the privacy implications of budgeting apps. The distinction between selling and sharing data has become increasingly meaningless. Whether your information gets sold directly or shared through partnerships and affiliate arrangements, the privacy impact remains the same. Your financial behavior becomes a commodity traded among companies you've never heard of for purposes you never approved. The good news is that alternatives exist. Subscription-based apps like YNAB, Monarch Money, Simplify, Lunch Money, and Empower demonstrate that sustainable business models don't require data monetization. These apps charge users directly, aligning their interests with customer success rather than data extraction. YNAB explicitly states it doesn't sell user data, and Lunch Money's founder openly rejects the practice of monetizing user information. The choice between free and paid apps isn't just about money, it's about whose interests your budgeting tool serves. Free apps serve advertisers and affiliate partners who pay for access to your financial profile. Paid apps serve you, the user who's actually paying for the service. As the collapse of Mint demonstrated, free apps can disappear overnight when the business model fails, taking years of your financial data with them. The irony is profound. In an era where 68.4% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and 43% say money negatively affects their mental health, the tools marketed as solutions often make the problem worse. They turn financial stress into a profit center and vulnerability into a targeting opportunity. Your financial data is among the most intimate information you possess. It reveals your struggles, your priorities, your fears, and your dreams. The companies that profit from this data aren't interested in your financial well-being, they're interested in your financial desperation. Understanding this distinction is the first step toward making choices that actually serve your interests, not theirs. The dark side of budgeting apps isn't just that they collect your data. It's that they've turned your financial anxiety into their business model, and they've convinced millions of people to pay for the privilege with their privacy.